All right, so today we're diving into Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power. This book, it's got a reputation, right? Kind of intense. And yeah, some of these laws, they're definitely playing hardball, you know what I mean? But our goal here isn't to turn you into some, like, Machiavellian schemer plotting to take over the world.
That's world domination. Not today, at least.
Exactly. But think of this deep dive more like kind of like a crash course in understanding how power dynamics really work. You know, like how to recognize those subtle, sometimes not so subtle ways people try to influence each other every day. Because, I mean, come on, never outshine the master. Pose as a friend, work as a spy. Those aren't just like catchy chapter titles, right? They're realities.
Yeah, and what I find so fascinating about these laws is they're not just, Robert Greene's ideas. They're distilled from, like, centuries of history, echoing through the halls of power from ancient Rome to all that courtly intrigue of, like, Renaissance Italy.
Oh, so it's like ancient wisdom for the modern world. But doesn't that, I don't know, does that really apply today? Are we really out here, like, navigating power struggles like Roman emperors? Or is this just, like, historical trivia? I mean, thankfully, poisonings aren't really, the norm anymore.
Yeah, we've definitely moved past certain methods. But think about it. The world you're in right now, competition, information overload. You've got people constantly vying for influence. These laws, they give you a framework. You can use it to decode those situations, whether you're dealing with a tough boss or trying to negotiate something, or even just, like, feeling more confident in a room full of big personalities,
So it's less about, like, wearing one of those velvet robes and plotting someone's demise, and more about, like, everyday self-defense.
Yeah.
Recognizing when somebody might be using one of these laws on us.
Exactly. Think of it like this. The laws expose those hidden scripts of human behavior. By recognizing them, you gain this almost predictive power over how people might react.
So you're saying it's not just fascinating, it's kind of essential to know this stuff.
You're starting to get it.
Okay, so we've established these laws. They've got some serious, like, historical street cred. But how do they actually play out in real life? I mean, the book is full of some pretty wild stories, right?
Oh, absolutely. Greene uses these historical anecdotes to, like, really bring the laws to life. He shows how they've been used throughout history, sometimes effectively, sometimes, well, disastrously.
All right, so hit me with one of the most memorable ones, something that makes you go, whoa, I didn't see that coming.
One that always stands out for me, the story of P.T. Barnum. The legendary showman. He was a master of, like, spectacle, distraction, especially early in his career. Let's just say he had a knack for generating attention, even if it meant using a little. Creative license.
Sounds like Lotsunks to me. Court attention at all cost.
Exactly. There's this story about Barnum walking through town, dressed as a reverend, knowing full well it would, stir up curiosity, even suspicion. People start following him, whispering about him being this infamous Reverend Avery, who was, a figure surrounded by scandal at the time. And Barnum, he knows exactly what he's doing. He's using this whole spectacle to draw huge crowds to his circus, even though, people suspected he wasn't really a reverend.
So it was like a calculated risk.
Yeah.
Create a buzz, even if it's a little controversial.
Yeah.
Because, hey, any publicity is good publicity, right?
That's the essence of it. He understood that people, they're naturally drawn to the extraordinary, the unusual. So he played on that. Their need for spectacle, this desire to be in the know, even if it meant, being fooled a little bit.
I mean, I can see how that still applies today. Think about how, like, celebrities and influencers, they create these carefully crafted personas just to grab our attention. It's like the modern day version of Barnum's spectacle, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
It all goes back to Law 6, court attention at all cost. Barnum understood the power of spectacle to really capture the public's imagination, even if it meant, stretching the truth a little. Now, on the flip side of, spectacular success, there are also cautionary tales. We're getting a little too, I guess, too cocky with power can backfire. And a great example of that is the Athenian general Themistocles.
Ooh, what happened there?
So Themistocles, brilliant military strategist, like instrumental in leading the Athenians to victory against the Persians. But ultimately, his success led to his downfall.
Did he try to, like, outshine the master?
Not quite. This story is a classic example of Law 47. Do not go past the mark you're aimed for. So after his victories, Themistocles, he gets a little arrogant. He's constantly reminding everyone of his accomplishments, even built, like, extravagant temples to himself.
Talk about overstaying your welcome, right?
Exactly. He failed to recognize that his power, it was dependent on the goodwill of the people and his constant boasting, his need to be the center of attention. It alienated the very people he needed to maintain his position. They felt like he'd become too powerful, too ambitious.
So what did they do? Did they, like, just tell him to chill out?
Not exactly. They used the system of ostracism, which was a practice in Athenian democracy, where they could actually vote. To exile someone they considered a threat.
Wow.
And that's what happened to Themistocles. He was banished from Athens.
So even a brilliant strategist
Yeah.
can be undone by, like, their own ego. It's kind of sobering thought, isn't it?
It is. It speaks to the importance of restraint, of understanding the limits of your power. The book really emphasizes this idea that true power, it lies not just in wielding influence, but also in knowing when to hold back, when to step aside. And speaking of knowing when to hold back, that reminds me of another story about deception and a character who really flipped the script on what we think we know about power.
Okay, you've got my attention.
Have you ever heard of George Salmanazar?
Can't say I have.
So get this. This guy shows up in 18th century England, and he convinces everyone he's from this exotic island called Formosa.
Formosa, where's that?
It's modern-day Taiwan. But back then, it was this, mysterious, almost mythical place to Europeans. And Salmanazar, he capitalizes on this. He creates this elaborate backstory. He invents a whole language, customs, even describes these, fantastical rituals and this religion that involved, sun worship and sacrificing hearts.
Wait, hold on. He made all of this up.
Pretty much, yeah.
And people believed him.
Hook, line, and sinker. He even published a book. It became a bestseller, lectured at universities, dined with dignitaries, the whole 9 yards. People were captivated by his tales of this exotic land.
So which law is this again?
Right.
Sounds like the one about, playing on people's need to believe.
You got it. This is classic Law 27. Play on people's need to believe to create a cult-like following. He tapped into this deep human desire for mystery, something beyond the mundane. He gave them a story they wanted to believe. And they, in turn, gave him power and influence. It really makes you wonder how much of what we believe is shaped by our own desire for a good story, even if it's not entirely true.
That is wild. I love how these stories are, making me question everything. But it's also a little unsettling, Makes you wonder, can these laws actually be used for good?
That's the heart of it, right? These laws, they're powerful. And like any tool, you can use them to build something up or tear something down.
So how do we make sure we're using them the right way? I mean, even if you start with good intentions, isn't there always that risk of, slipping into, the dark side?
That's where self-awareness comes in. Remember, this isn't about becoming some, power-hungry manipulator. It's about recognizing those dynamics so you can navigate them consciously, ethically.
Right, the whole self-defense thing. But what's interesting to me? Some of these laws, they almost seem designed for, playing in the long game. Always say less than necessary. How does that work? How does saying LS give you more power?
It's counterintuitive, right? But that's the beauty of Law 4. It's about cultivating this aura of mystery, making people work to earn your attention.
Oh, so you're saying it's like flipping the script.
Exactly. Think about it. Usually the person who talks more, who reveals more, they think they're the ones in control. But this disrupts that whole dynamic.
So you're saying it's like playing hard to get. Your words become more valuable because they're scarce.
Exactly. When someone's always talking, always telling you everything, their words, they lose their impact.
Right.
But when you choose your words carefully, it creates intrigue. People lean in. They want to figure you out.
It's like that saying, still waters run deep.
Exactly.
And you know what? This reminds me of another law. Master the art of timing.
Law 33.
Yes. What is that idea? Forced time.
Forced time. That's when you disrupt other people's sense of urgency. You force them to slow down. Play by your tempo.
Okay, this is starting to feel like we're playing some high-stakes game of strategy here.
And just like in chess, even the best players, they can make mistakes. And when it comes to power, those mistakes, they can have some pretty serious consequences.
That's true, that's true.
And that's why the book has this whole section on the reversal when these laws, they backfire.
Ooh, okay. Give me a cautionary tale.
All right, one of the most striking examples. The fall of Cesare Borgia.
Cesare Borgia.
Yeah, from Renaissance Italy. This guy was ruthless, ambitious, really the epitome of using these laws for his own game.
Not Mr. Nice Guy then.
Not at all. But he was a master strategist, and for a while he seemed unstoppable, but then His father died,
Who was his father?
Pope Alexander VI.
Oh, wow. Talk about powerful connections.
Right. But that was the problem. Borgia's power. It was dependent on that one connection.
And when that was gone,
It all crumbled. It's Law 42, strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter.
so even someone at the height of their power,
Gone, just like that.
it really is a reminder that power can be fragile.
Especially when it's built on manipulation and fear.
So we've talked about these laws, how they can be used, the good, the bad, even some pretty spectacular downfalls. What's the takeaway? What do we want our listener to walk away with today?
I think the most important thing to remember, these laws are powerful, but they aren't absolute. They're tools.
Like any tool, you can use them wisely, or you can use them foolishly.
Exactly. The key is understanding them, being aware, and then acting consciously.
I love it. Knowledge is power, but only if you use it wisely.
Well said. And on that note, here's something for everyone listening to think about. The book, it touches on this idea of creative power, not just using these laws for personal gain, but to build something, to innovate, to leave a lasting positive impact. How could you use these laws of power to achieve something truly meaningful?
That's something to think about. Thanks for listening.